All right, well, welcome back. This is our final round of Groves in our fall season as we wrap up our series, How to Church, and as it kind of culminates with our series on Sunday mornings in Know from Ephesians. And so I hope it's been a great semester. I hope it's really giving you a lot of food for thought as you think about what it means to be church, to do church, but more importantly, we always say this at Rising Church, but you don't go to church, you are the church. So really it's about what we're supposed to be doing as church as we do this thing together. And so as we kind of wrap things up, I kind of want to get to the very end of Ephesians, and I want to kind of, hopefully it'll be something that will stir some discussion with you. But it says this, as Paul kind of gets to the end, we've talked about this the last couple Sunday mornings, he gives us these final 4 commands, be strong in the Lord, be empowered, be strengthened by God, put on the full armor. He says, take up the armor, and he says, pray in the Spirit on all occasions. And so he's kind of giving us these final push, like, here's what I want you to remember. And then, like he does in a lot of letters, he kind of wraps up by doing some personal notes, which he does in almost all of his letters, where he says, hey, this person and this person and this person and this person, and he starts like name dropping all these people. And he only drops one name in this letter, and it's in chapter 6, verse 21, where he says this: Tychicus, the dear brother and faithful servant in the Lord, will tell you everything so that you also may know how I am and what I am doing. I am sending him to you for this very purpose, that you may know how we are and that he may encourage you. And so it's kind of interesting. You get this name and probably, hands up, who knows who Tychicus, I don't even know if I'm saying it right, Tychicus. How many of you have actually heard of this guy? And yet this is the one name that Paul drops in this letter to the Ephesians. And it's interesting if you kind of do some history, if you go back into Acts, you look at the other letters and you just kind of look up this name, Tychicus, and you kind of see where he shows up. He kind of shows up in some interesting spots. And so in Acts chapter 20, verse 3 and 4, Paul is actually on his return trip to Jerusalem, where he will eventually be arrested and then sent to Rome, which is where he's, again, under house arrest. But he's on his way, and it says this: because some Jews had plotted against him, just as we were about to sail for Syria, he decided to go back through Macedonia. He was accompanied by Sopater, son of Pyrrhus, from Berea, Aristarchus and Secundus from Thessalonica, Gaius from Derbe, Timothy also, and Tychicus and Trophimus from the province of Asia. And if you've been around for a little bit, you probably remember the name Trophimus, because Trophimus was the guy who got Paul in trouble in the first place when he took Trophimus with him, and all the Jews in Jerusalem thought that he took Trophimus into the temple courts, if you remember this whole story, and crossed over the barrier and the dividing line separating Jews and Gentiles. But he also mentions this guy Tychicus. So this guy Tychicus has been traveling with Paul for some time. It's one of his entourage members, along with, the names of Timothy, and for a while there was Silas, and there was Barnabas early on, and you got some of these other names, Aristarchus and Secundus and Sopater, and now you got Tychicus. And so we know that this guy traveled with Paul through Macedonia, through Turkey, sailed all the way to Jerusalem, to Caesarea, up to Jerusalem, was probably there when the whole riot and everything took place. Maybe he went down with him to Caesarea and was kind of taking care of Paul while Paul was in there for 2 years. And now he's made his way all the way to Rome with Paul. And a lot of people believe that Tychicus is actually the one who's actually writing this letter as Paul dictates to Tychicus, and Tychicus is the one who's writing it down, so it's in his hand, but he's basically writing down what Paul tells him, and he says, hey, Tychicus, the dear brother and faithful servant of the Lord, will tell you everything. He shows up again in Colossians chapter 4, where it says, Tychicus will tell you all the news about me. He is a dear brother, a faithful minister, and fellow servant in the Lord, and I'm sending him to you for the express purpose that you may know about our circumstances and that he may encourage your hearts. He says he's going to tell you everything that is happening here. This is what he tells the church in Colossae. And then if you kind of flip a little bit later, you get into 2 Timothy, which is usually kind of later in Paul's imprisonment, maybe the last letter that Paul writes before he's executed. And even there at the very end, he says, I sent Tychicus to Ephesus. He's like, I sent him to go minister to the people in Ephesus and to report and to tell them about how I'm doing and what's going on. In Titus 3:12, we also hear Tychicus' name. And it says, as soon as I send Artemis or Tychicus to you, do your best to come to me and Nicopolis. He's telling Titus, hey, I'm sending Tychicus to you, and then hopefully you can come to me. And so obviously this guy's a pretty important person in the life of Paul, even though most of us have probably never heard of his name before and have no clue who he is. But he's the one that Paul says, hey, probably what's happening is he's sending this letter that Tychicus wrote as Paul dictated, and he's sending him to go deliver it to Ephesus and deliver the letter also to Colossae. And he says, this is the reason, that you also may know how I am and what I am doing. I am sending him to you for this very purpose, that you may know how we are, and that he may encourage you. And I think there's something in this about the role of church and how to church. And that is that Paul, sometimes we think of Paul and we think he's just this mighty warrior. He's kind of like this lone wolf kind of out there on his own, kind of taking on the Roman Empire and just going through all over the known world at that point, sharing Jesus. But the reality is, sorry, somebody's trying to call me. The reality is he was always accompanied by others. He had a team, a support team that was with him. And I kind of think of it as he had kind of his own little mini church in that sense, but he also demonstrated for us that we need each other, that we're not supposed to walk through this thing alone. Last week we talked about how our wrestling bout, our struggle, is something that we have to go one-on-one kind of, in essence, against the enemy, and how our support system can be there to support us and encourage us and cheer us on and coach us, but ultimately we have to be the ones battling, and I think Paul understands that, but he also understands, no, we have to do this thing with other people. And that we need each other to support each other. We need each other to encourage each other, which we talked about 2 weeks ago. We need each other to hold each other accountable, which we talked about last week. And I think we need to be in fellowship. We need to be in connection. We have to be in relationship. We have to know each other. And we have to be known. And so that's why he's like, hey, I'm sending this guy to you so that you can know how I'm doing. So you can kind of check in. He can report on how you can be praying for me, how you can be supporting me, what I really need. He's going to give you a report, and he's also going to be encouraging you. But he's kind of like the connection between us, because back then, Paul, again, chained to a Roman soldier, can't just get up and go to Ephesus and say hi. So he's like, I'm sending him to you so he can report to you how I'm doing, but also so that he can report back eventually on how you're doing, because we're in relationship with each other. We're in connection with each other. And so to me, how to church, we have to be known. We have to have relationship with each other. We have to go deeper in relationship with each other. It can't just be this thing where we just kind of show up on Sundays or even in Grove and we just kind of sit back and don't really connect with anybody. We don't talk to anybody. We don't know anybody. We just get up and leave and go home. It's like, no, it's like you're meant to know each other, to know how each other are doing, to encourage each other. And so I think this is important because Paul is the one that sets the example for this. And I think Tychicus is kind of an example of that in Paul's life. And so the question for us is, who are those people in our life who are the ones that are coming alongside us, who are encouraging us, who are challenging us, who are holding us accountable, who are walking with, who know what's really going on with us? Is there anybody? Is there other people in the church that really know what's going on with you, that really know how you're doing, that could actually report, like, here's what's going on in Aaron's life, here's what's going on in this person's life, because I know them, I've walked with them, I've talked with them, I know their burdens. Galatians 6:2, I think is a key verse for us, and it says, carry each other's burdens. In this way you will fulfill the law of Christ. So we have to carry each other's burdens. We got to walk with each other. We got to say, hey, I'm willing to lift up and take on other people's burdens to lighten their load in order to help them. And at times they're going to do that for me, and at times I'm going to do that for them. But that's what it means to be church. But I guess as we conclude this series, what does it mean to church? How to church? I want to encourage all of us to really, go back through and think about the different things we've talked about. And what does it mean for us as a Rising Church to put these things into action? And how can we really, truly be connected to each other? How can we really know what's going on with each other so that we can be praying for each other, supporting each other, getting real with each other, not putting on the mask and all the facade, but just kind of, man, here's what I'm struggling with. Here's what I'm wrestling with. It's like, I know maybe I have to wrestle this thing to the ground myself, but you can help me, you can guide me, you can encourage me, you can check up on me. How can we be doing that as a church body so that we can truly be church? So hopefully as we wrap up the session, as you continue talking about this, you're going to come up with some practical ideas for how we can continue doing that, whether in Grove or outside of Grove. But as a church body, how can we know each other, be known, and know each other, like Paul with Tychicus? So food for thought. I hope this has been a great session for you. I look forward to where we're going to go in the winter. But for now, we're signing off, and we will see you in a couple months.